Today, we're diving into our 1 week review of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now, if you watched any of the previous videos I made where I talked about this game, I said that all Warhorse Studios had to do was improve upon the original just a little bit, and this game would be amazing. And honestly, that's exactly what they did, and I am not disappointed in the result that we got. This game just feels like a fresh start. It feels like an up-to-date version of the original, and it feels like a game that you are now ready to sink hundreds, if not thousands, of hours over the next several years while enjoying every moment along the way. A couple of things I want to key mention on that I liked about this game, and then a couple of things that I didn't find so enjoyable along the way. In full disclosure, this game came out on Tuesday and I stopped playing to make this video Saturday night, so it wasn't exactly a week worth of gameplay, but I did get about 30 hours of the game under my belt. And with that being said, I'm not really that far into the main story of the game because, as I'll mention here in a few minutes, the world building and the never wanting to disconnect myself from what Warhorse Studios has done is insane in this game. Let's start with a couple of things that I wanted to mention here early on in the video. And the first and most important thing is that the combat feels noticeably much better. In Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, there were 5 separate angles you could swing a weapon. You had your above head, left, right, and then 2 bottom swings as well. However, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, they decided to get rid of the 2 on the bottom and just make it 1, and having that be also sort of thrust your weapon at the opponent if you're able to do that. And I was very skeptical about this change coming into the second one because I felt that they were maybe making the combat a little bit easier and a little bit more beginner friendly, and that would cause the rest of the game to be focused on a beginner friendly feeling. As previously mentioned, one of my favorite things about Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was how challenging and hard it was, and how I feel like it loses a ton of player base early on in the game due to the fact that one of the first missions is relatively difficult. But Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did not deliver on that at all. I really feel like the change to the combat is positive and better, and in fact it feels more responsive, and it just feels like they refined it in a way that makes it a lot more enjoyable. I find myself actually wanting to engage in fights rather than avoiding them, which is sometimes what I did in the previous game. Another thing that is incredibly improved upon in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 from the previous one is the quests. They feel so much more enjoyable. Now, there was a lot of talk of the word dynamic quests when this game was getting released, and I think I even mentioned that in one of my previous videos about this game, and I never really understood what that meant. I just heard it being said and it sounds cool, but the best way I can describe what I think they mean is that in this game it matters when you do quests. Now, the result doesn't, right? If your goal is to go get treasure, you're still going to get treasure no matter how you go about that quest. However, what does matter is if you do it in the morning, if you do it in the afternoon, or if you do it at night, overnight. A good example of that is there's a quest early on in the game when you have to go infiltrate a bandit camp and steal back a horse that was stolen. In this quest, I found myself trying to be a solo superhero assassin who could go shoot his arrow, and I just kept dying. Okay, let's just get to the point. I kept dying a lot because it was like me versus 4, and let's remember that Henry is just a guy. He's not a superhero. He's not this cool like knight who is better than everyone like Jaime Lannister before he got his hand cut off. He is just a normal, regular guy. He's probably better than you or I would ever be as being a knight, but he's still just regular. Anyway, point is, I can't take on a group of 4 or 5 people. So after attempt, I decided to just go back to the tavern and drink and play dice with other NPCs until nighttime came. Again, you are able to wait and speed up time if you wanted to, but I like to kind of make myself be a part of the world as much as I can. Then at nighttime, I went back to that bandit camp and they were all asleep, and there was 2 guards patrolling while everyone else slept. So I snuck in and took care of the people sleeping, and then I dealt with the much easier one-on-one battles I could do with the people who were patrolling, and then I took the horse and I left. And that to me is what a dynamic quest is, that if I did it during the daytime, I would have had to fight all of them, whereas if I waited till night, I was much easier to pick them off. That is not described in the quest description. Sometimes you'll play games where it will say things like, it's best to do it at night. This is all things that you're going to have to decide what are the best time and when you should go about completing these quests. Now, this is a great time to also mention that the world building is on another level. There was a quote from one of the developers right before the game came out that his advice to the players were to listen to what the NPCs are talking about. And that's exactly what I did in this game. And he was not lying. There are tons of stories that these NPCs will be talking to each other, from where's buried treasure to help finding a lost dog to everything in between. And it's one of those things that you really feel like people took the time to make this game feel as authentic and realistic, although that's a thrown around word a lot, as ever. I mean, the environment literally feels real. I wasn't alive in the 15th century, believe it or not, but I have to imagine this is closest to what we think it was. I'm not sure if that's a right, accurate statement, but it's not just the quest and it's not just the world building. The side games are back and more fun than ever. If you remember, one of my favorite things to do in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was play the dice at the local taverns, and it is back. I do think there's a little bit of a problem with it because so far all I've seen is when you go into a town, it has a set amount that you can bet, which feels a little limited, whereas in the first one you were able to kind of haggle your way to bet as much as you want. I don't know if they're trying to make it so you don't make as much money, because it was, not easy, but easier to just go bet 100 groschen and then win that, rather than have to progress through the story or do things that would be a little bit more difficult to make that money. Also, unarmed combat is in this game, and it is a standout, and it feels so exciting to do that. I love fighting with my fists in this game. Again, the combat is like, it was one of those things in Kingdom Come 1 that I really didn't like to do that much. In this game, it's a completely different level. There is a like bare knuckle fighting ring that you can do, and there's tournaments that you can enter. I think it's awesome. One of the cool things about this game too is that if you fight with an NPC or you fight with someone, they'll match your weapon level. So if you're throwing fists, they're just going to do the same, but if you pull out a sword, they'll be pulling theirs out too. It does add a layer of sort of appreciation to the game. I don't want to say realism, because I am guilty of sometimes almost dying by someone with a fist, and then I just pick up my sword before they do and stab them. So call it cowardly. Hey, no one else is watching me, but I am just that's a weird thing that I kind of like what they did, but I also found a way around it. Of course, no game is perfect like Elden Ring. Every game has its flaws, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 definitely has a couple of flaws. The biggest one to me, and this might be a personal thing, but I don't think so, is that the map took me way too long to figure out. It's not super intuitive, and I ran into issues where my quests weren't showing up on the map. I couldn't track them properly, and it felt frustrating. I know what I wanted to do, but the game just wasn't helping me do it. You can only track 3 quests, so I did know that wasn't the issue, but sometimes they would show up on the map and then other times they just wouldn't. Also, the prologue in this game is like 2 hours. I don't mind long prologues. I think as I was making this review, I started to think that it did feel a little too long for me, but I also wonder if that previously mentioned comment about the combat, where I said they were trying to make it a little bit more beginner friendly, maybe the prologue is like that, so players get hooked in the first 2 hours. For me, it was sort of the opposite, because I had already played the first one. And lastly, I also want to mention that much like the first game, the difficulty is probably going to turn some people away. To keep it simple, this game isn't easy. You're not going to go in and just pick up where you left off and start winning. You have to get better at this game, just like you did in the first one. You have to learn mechanics. You have to improve your skills. And while that's part of what makes it so rewarding, I know it won't be that rewarding for everybody. Despite those minor issues, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has been an incredible experience. Warhorse Studio did exactly what they needed to do. The combat, the quests, the side quests, the world, it all just comes together beautifully. If you are a fan of the first game, this is a no-brainer, and if you're new to this series, now's a perfect time to jump in. This video does relatively well. Once I finally complete the full game, I will make a much more in-depth review of it because I thoroughly enjoyed my time so far playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.